Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad to have you. Here we are again this afternoon, sharing some great tools with you to make you successful in your classroom. So today we are going to be sharing with you Google Forms. And Google Forms is a tool that's part of Google Drive that we talked about earlier. There is a sample form that we posted inside of the chat box. If you don't mind, please go ahead and take a look at that. Well, it looks like poor Dana dropped. And so please go ahead and just answer some of those questions while we're going to wait for Dana to come back again. So for some reason, it boots her off every time we go live. So we have to figure out what's going on there. But again, thank you for coming. We're happy to have you. I'm going to review all the things that we review in the other ones if you've been here. Sorry, it's a little monotonous, but we are on YouTube Live. This is recorded. It will be on YouTube, and it is on YouTube right now. Down below is our channel. You can click on that to get into our channel, and then from there you can go ahead and subscribe and click the bell for any notifications. We are on a short delay. It looks like the delay's gotten actually a lot shorter than before, but we are on somewhat of a delay. So go ahead and just take a look at that form while we're waiting. We also have everything on our website. It has a lot of stuff. It's going to be continuing to be pushed out to you guys. In the top right corner is how you would access all of the resources. We are going to very shortly release the Drive and Forms one, so those will be there as well. So please keep an eye out on our website. It will be updated as often as we can. As we continue to go through, in addition to our website, we have everything available at this form to check out. We appreciate it. I can have Dana add that, Robert, to there. The form was just a simple thing to get you started with the questions. I will share the link again in the chat box. Also, I want to send a special thank you to all those people with a wrench. The people with the wrench mean that they are a moderator, and those moderators are there to help us keep the chat happy and friendly, and also answer any questions that you may encounter as we go along. Because of that delay, it is one of those things that, it's harder to answer those questions. Dana came back. Don't forget to share your screen as well, Dana. We'll get that in a second. So with that out of the way, don't forget that that form I shared is there so that you can just check out some of the questions. So with that, we're going to just go quickly again. Go ahead, Dana, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, welcome. We are so excited that you're joining us today. We're going to be learning how to create Google Forms. Sorry for my quick delay. I got dropped by the internet, but I'm happy to be here now.
And also, my name is John Shoemaker again. I'm kind of, looks like serving as the MC here, or the production manager in the background, trying to keep these things up and running for you guys. So thank you for joining us. We have just a short agenda to talk about. Before we go live, we want to get in and get into the nuts and bolts of forms. But what we're going to talk about is obviously, how do we get there? Then creating a new form. What kind of question types are out there? We did, if you don't see your name in the dropdown, just pick any name. It doesn't matter what your name is. So just pick any name in that dropdown on the form. We just did that so you can see some of the different question types that are available. We're also going to talk about sharing and how you then share out the form to either parents, students, whatever. And also the quiz feature, because the quiz feature is very helpful if you want to give quizzes for your students. So with that, Dana, if you don't mind hitting the share screen at the bottom, I'll put your screen up on and we can get you going. All right, and so we're going to go live. There you go.
All right, thank you, John. So if you were able to click on the form link in the chat, that was just an example of a Google form so that you could see the different question types. If you didn't get to it, that's And I'll show you how to create here. You're expecting a longer answer. It's a paragraph question.
Hang on, Dana.
Yes.
I'm going to jump in. Sorry. For whatever reason, when I removed you from the screen, your sound went all kind of crazy. So I'm going to stay up here, but if you can just scroll back to the top and start this section over. It was just cut out, but you sound good now, though. So go ahead.
Okay, so take two.
Yep, sorry.
That's okay. So if you had an opportunity to click on the example of a form while you were waiting for the webinar to start, that was to just give you some prior knowledge of the different question types. If you didn't get to it, that's fine. I'm going to scroll down and show you the different questions, and then we'll learn how to add each of these. If you'd like to go back and watch this again, this is all getting recorded. You can press pause and build your form on your own later on. Today, we're just going to go through everything to learn how to do it. So in this example, you notice on the top a picture. Google Forms allows you to select different themes. Down here, we have directions, which you can personalize on your form. This is a drop-down question, and I know that these are not your names, but that's okay. That was just an example to see what the drop-down looks like. Next, we have a calendar question. So you could ask people what the date is, or if this was your attendance for the day, they could select the date on the calendar. This one is asking the students to describe something. So this is known as either a short answer or a paragraph question. This is when you have an open-ended question that students or parents or whoever you're sharing this with will reply to. Here we have a multiple choice question, and notice how I added images, so I'll show you how you can do that. Next, we have a question where you can have a multi-select or check boxes. So the respondents can select as many as they want. Here we have a question where students or respondents can upload a file. So a lot of people are asking about submitting things. Of course, students can submit through Google Classroom, but if you have something that you're in a quiz or a form or a survey like this, students do have the opportunity to add a file as well. Here we have a ranking question. This is known as the linear scale. And this goes either, you can change, it doesn't need to go from 1 to 10. You could make it from 1 to 5 or 1 to 6 or whatever you want. And students would just click how they're feeling. This one asking about what time of day do you prefer your schoolwork. There's actually two question types with this, but they're very similar. This one is a multiple choice grid, and there's also the checkbox grid. The only difference is the checkbox has squares instead of circles. But in here, each respondent can just select whatever time of day they prefer. And then lastly, we have a time question where the respondent can just put whatever time it is. So I'm going to go ahead and click submit so I could show you how this works. Oh, and I didn't answer one, but that's okay. And later on, I'll show you how the responses come in. So now that we've had a chance to just see the different question types, we're going to learn how to build one. So to access Google Forms, you can do that in several ways. One way is by going to your Drive. And when you're in your Drive, clicking on New, and then scrolling down to More. And then here we have Google Forms. Another way would be if you're in your Drive or email or within any of the Google environment, you can click on this app selector, the waffle, and within there, you'll scroll down and you'll see Forms. And lastly, you can go to forms.google.com. So let's go ahead and click on Forms so we can start a new one. And you'll notice on the top, I have some suggestions. I can create a blank form, a blank quiz, and then here are some templates that you might like to use. For now, I'm going to click on a blank form. Once that opens, it's going to give me the opportunity to give this a title. So I'm going to call this Forms Webinar. Oops. And below that, this is where you would type your directions. I like to use directions like this. I'm just going to copy this and paste it in the form that we were just doing. It's always important to have directions for your students. Something similar to read each question carefully and select the best answer. When you are done, click Submit at the bottom of the form. To name your form, if you come up here to Untitled, if you just click there, it's going to automatically bring in the title, and that will match. If you want to be more specific, you can certainly change that. And then once you're done, just click Enter or click, and you can move it into a folder if you want to organize something. So now that we have our title and our directions, let's take a look at the questions. The way that this works is you have your questions and your responses. So we're going to spend some time on questions first, and then I'll go through the rest of the settings. Towards the right, we have our menu bar. So this is where the plus sign is where we're going to add a question. When we add a question, there is a drop down. So by clicking on this little baby triangle, these are all the different question types that you saw earlier in that example. So for now, let's go ahead and start. I'm just going to go down the list in order. Keep in mind that your questions can always be moved and you can reorder them after or as you're making your survey. So for a short answer, this would be an open-ended. And maybe I want to type something like, what do you want to learn? This is going to leave an open blank for your respondents to type their answers. The short answer and the paragraph are very similar. They're both open-ended. The only difference is the paragraph question will allow your respondents to have a larger text box to type in. Once you have that question made, you do have some tools on the bottom. This one is to duplicate. So if I wanted to copy this question and just change a few words, I could duplicate it. If you want to delete the question, you click the trash can. You might want to make this a required question. And then the ellipse, if you click on that, you can add a description if you want. I'll show you what that does. It adds an extra line here that maybe you need a little further information for your respondents to know what you're talking about. Now we're going to go ahead and add another question. And we're going to pull this drop down and let's do a multiple choice. So for a multiple choice, you're going to type what your question is here. And then you have your options. And you can add as many options as you want. Now, in the example earlier, one of my questions had some pictures in it. So if you'd like to add some images to your questions, notice how when I hover over, I get this little, it looks like a little mountain icon. This is how you would add an image. So if we click that, you have a few options. I can upload, I can use my camera, I can search. So for right now, I'm just going to click on Google search and I'll type in Google Forms and let's see what we come up with. So here's the icon that represents Google Forms. So when you find your picture, you click on it and you click Insert. And then that will pop right in there. If it comes in large, you can resize it and you can, of course, add as many pictures as you wanted. Going to the next question type, we have checkboxes. So this is where you can have a multi-select. So for example, select how you will use forms. which is kind of similar to my last question, but I can say, and you can add as many as you want. So let me just stop for a minute and show you how this looks so far, and then we'll come back and add additional questions. So up here on the top is a little eyeball. This is the preview. So when I click on preview, you can see already here's that short answer question. Here's the multiple choice with the image. And then here is where I have the multi-select. To return back to editing, I'm going to click on this little pencil and we'll keep going. I tend to go to preview quite often as I'm building my forms because I like to see how it looks and make sure that the question type is aligned to what I'm trying to ask. And then if it's not, I can change it. So our next question type is a drop-down. So this is where you would have a menu where you would have things pre-populated and your respondents can just click on the drop-down and select. So in the example you all did before, you saw there were several names there. So in this example, I'll just add a few for now, but that's what it would look like, a drop-down. Again, you can
Dana,
question. Yes.
I'm going to pop in. There is a question in the chat real quick that I want to bring up now. She did ask, how do you resize the pictures? Were you able to do that in the one above there?
So in this picture, it didn't let me resize because it came in quite small, but let me add another picture. And the ones that come in large, you are able to resize. So let me do a half.
It may give you something like you see in your email, right? Or you can pick like small, medium, large.
Exactly. Well, no, it has little blue squares on the vertices. Okay. And then you can, let's see if this one comes in big. No. So this one didn't either. Of course, now it won't.
but that's what you want to look for.
With little 4 on each corner, on each vertice that you can drag it in.
Gotcha.
To make it smaller.
So only for the big ones that come in, it'll show up in the corners.
Correct. Perfect. Any other questions before I keep going through the question types?
No, I think that's good for now. That was just one that the chat wasn't really sure about. So good to know. Thank you.
Our next question type is going to be a file upload. So this is where if you want people to upload or submit something to your form, and what's nice is that Google automatically creates a folder for you in your Google Drive that will hold all of the file uploads for this form. So it gives you a few permissions here. So it's asking if you want to allow specific file types. If you turn this on, you have to then select the ones that you're willing to accept. I typically leave that off because you never know what students are going to submit. You can also determine a maximum number of files. That's up to you. And then a file size. Once we have that, and I usually put a larger file size just to make sure it doesn't limit anyone. And then you'll notice this little message comes on the bottom. So if you get that, you have to click change. And then in here in the settings, you just need to, I usually make it 1 terabyte just so that there's no issue with uploading files. And so now that question is done. Going down the list, the linear scale, this is where you have that range of 1 through 10. So on a scale of 1 through 10, and then you would ask whatever your question is here. So you can go to 10, or maybe you want your scale only to go to 5. So whatever that is, you can identify that. And then you can identify what number 1 is and what number 10 is. And this is really a best practice because some people are going to assume that 10 is the best, and some will assume that number 1 is the highest score. And so you do want to identify which of those it is. The multiple choice grid, this is where you have, think of it as a matching, not a matching, but where, let me show you the example one more time. The grid was this one, where you have your identifiers on the left, and then you have the options towards the right. So on here, you would ask your question, and then you would go ahead and write down whatever your items are. And then for your columns, you would put the choices. And so forth. And then you might want to require a response for each of these rows. By the way, all of these questions, you can make them required just by clicking on that little toggle. So the checkbox and the multiple choice grid are very similar. Notice how here we have squares instead of circles. Other than that, it's exactly the same. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that question since I don't need it. And we will finish off by adding our last two, which is a date question and a time question. What I like about the date question is that all you have to do is click on the calendar and select today's date. And the calendar will automatically populate, and the respondents can just scroll through and click on whatever it is that they want. And for the time question, same thing down here. Ask your question and the little clock will automatically show. So now that we have some of those questions created, let's go through some of the other tools. We learned how to add questions by clicking on this little plus sign. If you want to import questions from another quiz, you can do that by clicking on the next icon. Here we can add a title and description. Adding an image is that little, looks like a little mountain icon. You might want to add a video to one of your questions. And then sections. I'm going to get to sections at the end.
One quick thing, Dana, too, I'm going to pull a question real quick, which is someone wants to like put in a YouTube performance in the question, and they would do that by just clicking that video button you just showed, the little play button.
Yes.
You just click that, and it'll ask you for the YouTube URL. You paste it in there, and then it will actually show up for the kids to watch. Then you could put the actual questions underneath of it. So good question. I knew she was going to get to it, so that's why I wanted to let her cover it here.
Exactly. So if you have the URL, you can use that and just paste it in, or you can search for it on the spot. If I want to put a YouTube video on how to create a Google form, I just Googled it. I can click the one I want and select, and it will go ahead right into my form, and then I would type whatever I want them to do. Now, of course, as the teacher, you would want to watch this video, make sure it aligns to your standards and it's appropriate to your students. But just to quickly add a YouTube video, you would click over here where it says add video. Now, there's some other tools towards the top that are important. So up here, we have some other settings. This first one is to customize the theme. By default, your forms are always going to have this violet purple look to it, but you can click that and you can change it. You can choose an image for the header. And when you do that, there's a few options. There's already some themes that Google has provided. So you can go through these and pick one. I'll go to work and school, and the one I used on my example was the little colored pencils, and you can just click any of these. That one's kind of cute. We'll do that. Or you can upload if you already have a picture saved, or you can pull from your photos. So this gives you a lot of choices of how you want to customize your form. And then notice how when I change this header up here, that now the colors on the sides changed as well. You have some color choices. So right now it went to this pale orange, but if you wanted, you can change the colors by just clicking each of these little ones. Or if you click the plus sign, it's going to give you some hex codes. And if you want to put in your own hex code, you can. You can always just click around and just, let's say I wanted that. I can click add, and now my background has that color. There's also a few font styles, not many, but 4 choices that you can choose from. Once you have that done, then we can go back to the little eyeball, which allows us to preview this form. This is how it will look when your respondents answer these questions. Now keep in mind, my form is not done, but this is still how it will look if it was complete. When you're ready to continue editing, there's a little pencil on the bottom right. So you click that, and that will take us back to edit.
Dana, real quick, can you click on the play button one more time?
The preview?
No, the play button to add a video.
Oh, okay, yes.
Someone else is asking about video. They're asking about a brain pop. So if you click on, go ahead and click the video. Instead of YouTube, at the top, there's a URL option. It says YouTube, huh? It may take videos there. We would have to check.
Actually, for YouTube, what I would suggest, for Brain Pop.
They wanted to add a Brain Pop or a STEM Scopes or Pearson, all the different types of.
Yes, you can add a URL that's not YouTube. So for Brain Pop, for example, or for anything that's not YouTube, but since you asked about Brain Pop, let me just do that. I would suggest going in the portal, clicking on Brain Pop, and finding, you can use these content areas, or you can search on the top. And I'm just going to go to, let's see what's trending at the moment. All right, let's do this one. So let's say this was something I wanted to add to my Google form. And this would be the same workflow for anything that you find on the internet that is appropriate for your form. So you can copy the URL on the top. You can either click down and drag across, and then you can do Control-C to copy, or you can right-click and you can copy this way. Both of those will work. Then I'm going to go back to my form, and let's say I wanted them to watch this video before answering the questions. And then I'm going to, you can right click and paste or Control-V. And now the link is there. Now you might notice it doesn't look like it's hot linked quite yet, but when I go back to preview, now do you see how it turned blue? If I click on this, it should take me back to Brain Pop. Good question. Any others, John?
No, I think that's good for right now. There were some asking about timing. Can you make it like only open for a period of time? Unfortunately, that's not possible. Dana's going to show you the sharing feature in a second, which will allow you to like stop accepting responses, which is what I shared. So like if you tell students at 3 o'clock tomorrow, I'm going to turn the form off. And so if they try to access the link after 4 o'clock, then they get a, sorry, this form is closed, but that's all a manual process.
Exactly. So let's take a look at the settings. So on the top right, you have this gear. And if you click on that, this is going to open all of the settings for the form. So what we've been doing right now, notice there's general, there's presentation, and there's quizzes, and we'll go through all of them. So in the general settings, if you want to collect the email addresses, you can click that. You can also provide a response receipt, which means that the respondent will get an email back to them stating what they completed in the form. If you are doing this within the district, you can restrict users to the District of Palm Beach, but keep in mind, if you're creating a survey for parents, then you want to uncheck this because then it's for anyone with the link. So this is really important. You have to consider your audience before you share this form. So again, if you're staying with students and teachers in Palm Beach County, you can keep this restricted. But if you're doing a survey for parents, you want to take that off. You can also determine how many responses each person has. If you want to limit it to only one, then you click here. If it's something that they're going to come back to over and over, then you can leave that unchecked. You also have some choices about what they can do. If you want students to edit after they submit, or if you want them to see the summary charts and text responses. So that's a personal choice, depending on what you want to do. Let's take a look at the presentation options. In here, you can show a progress bar. So this will show students, for example, let's say you have 10 questions and it'll show them that they've done 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10. So it shows them the progress throughout the survey. You can also shuffle the questions. This is really great if you're in the classroom and you're worried about students seeing each other's screens. But since we're virtually teaching right now, I don't think that's I don't know if you're going to really need that so much. And then if this particular form, if you're expecting additional responses, then you can show the link that allows them to respond again. There's also a confirmation message. So if you want to personalize that, you can. And you can save that. One last thing I want to show you is quizzes. So forms can be used in a few different ways. What we just went through was more of a survey where we're collecting data and information and open-ended questions, but there's really no right or wrong answer. This isn't something I would grade. If you want to create a quiz, then you need to come to this quiz tab, and you can either turn this form into a quiz or you can create a new one. So I'll show you how this works. We can click the toggle to make it a quiz. They do have this locked mode for Chromebooks. If we were in the classroom, this is something that we would recommend. However, since our students are working from home and some of them are on personal devices and Chromebooks and everyone's on whatever they have, this isn't going to work because the locked mode only works on the district Chromebooks when they're on the district network. As we scroll down, if we did have a quiz, we have some options to immediately send the grade or later after manual review. And then you can decide if you want respondents to see the questions they missed, the correct answers, and point values. I typically just leave point values checked, especially if you're going to be, I don't think students should see the correct answers until everyone has taken the quiz. That's up to you. You can certainly pick whatever you want. And then we're going to click Save. So in this example, we did more of a survey. I'm going to show you an example of a quiz, and then we'll go through those settings. So here's an example of a quiz I made for the rock cycle. And now that you're familiar with the question types, the only difference is that the quizzes have point values and you need to tell the form, or the quiz rather, which answer is correct, if it actually has an answer. Keep in mind that if it's an open-ended question, then for that, the teacher will need to score those questions. So in this example, here we have where students would have to pick the correct answer. And notice up here, it tells the student that this question is worth 9 points. As I scroll down, here we have one of those open-ended questions worth 6 points. This is one that I would have to score. So I'm just going to type something in here so you can see how it looks when it comes in. Matching the types of rocks, you would just click away. This one's worth 3 points. Another open-ended question. Here's where we have to pick a few choices and a true-false question. So now, pretend like I knew a lot about the rock cycle, and this was a great quiz right here, and I'm going to submit it. So let's see how those responses come in. Now I can go back to my quiz and let me refresh my screen.
Yep, while she's refreshing, great idea from Robert on the shuffling thing. I mean, I always thought it was a great idea in the classroom, but he said it also might be good for those who are using phones and like take a screenshot and share it with their friend, and then it's all out of order. So good idea.
Great suggestion. Yes, we have to be smarter than those students, don't we? They like to take pictures and share with their friends.
Yes.
So one thing I want to show you, whether you're in a quiz or you're in a survey like we had earlier, when students or parents or colleagues, when respondents submit their answers.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt one more time? Sorry, before you move the screen, they are also asking, how do you actually give point values to each question?
I'm going to show you that.
Oh, okay, sorry, just making sure.
We're going to get to that.
Gotcha.
So here in the responses, notice how I have a number 2. This is going to show me how many people have responded. And when I click on responses, here is a quick overview and summary. I can scroll down and see everything at a glance. I can go by question or I can go by individual. Also, up here, the responses will automatically populate in a spreadsheet. So by clicking on that, the first time you do it, it's going to prompt if Google should create a new spreadsheet or to an existing spreadsheet. For now, I'm going to click on the new one and create. And all of the answers will go there. And then here in my spreadsheet, I could scroll through and see responses. One other thing I need to show you real quick is that some of the questions in that quiz needed to score. So for example, this one, I would need to give it a point value because that was an open-ended response. And then I can go to the next one and I can give this one a point value and so on. Now, the question about creating the quiz. So let me go back to the questions and I'm going to add another question to the bottom here to show you how to do that. So now that we know how to make the questions, we're going to click this plus add. Oh, it went to the top. Okay. So right away, you can decide what kind of question type you want. And you can add your question here. And you would add your answer choices. Now, for the point value and to tell Google what the right answer is, you have to click down here where it says answer key. This is where we can select the answer key and the point value. So when we click on this, here I can give it a point value. So maybe I want this to be worth 2 points. And then I need to give some answers. I need to give some answer choices and then tell Google which one is correct. So notice how I clicked on this one and it got the green check. So this would be the correct answer. Let me go ahead and add some other answer choices just so that you can see. And now if I go back to my answer key, maybe no is the right answer. So if I click on no, that gets the green check, and then I can uncheck that one. So as the teacher, you can determine the point value and the correct answer by clicking on that answer key right there. You can also determine if this is going to be a required question. And let's just do one more for a quiz. If you want Google to score it for you, then you need to have a question that has a definitive answer. For example, a multiple choice or a drop down or a multiple choice grid or something like that. If you're going to do a short answer or paragraph, then as the teacher, you need to do the point value. So for a drop down, for example, let me just go to the drop down. This one, for example. So notice how this one has 3 green checks because all of those are the correct answer. If I click on this one so you can see to edit, and I go to the answer key, I told Google which one was the right answer key, and I made each of those 1 point so that the entire question is actually worth 3. John, are there any other questions about quizzes?
Some of the questions coming in were about, there were questions about the checkbox multi, so they can select multiple answers. But Trent is actually sharing some really good feedback, which is unless the student picks it exactly, then it will score it wrong. So if, for example, in the types of rocks on here, if her answer key had that first row have all 3 checked and the student checks 2 and not the third one, it's marked wrong.
Correct.
They have to do exactly what you're saying the answer is has to be in there. So keep that in mind as you're doing this. Again, you can also always just go in and rescore it, but you may not want to make it auto grade those kind of questions if you're concerned at first. There is a question, show one more time how to tell Google the correct answer.
Okay, was there a specific question type that person was asking for?
They just want a correct answer. How do you give the correct answer?
All right, so let's start a new one. I'm going to click the little plus to add a question. And I think it went to here it is. Okay, and then you can select your question type. Once you have your question type, when is the first day of virtual school? And then I actually meant to do this as a multiple choice. And then I can add my options. And so on. Once you have your question and your answer choices developed, you need to click down here where it says answer key. And when I hover over, notice it says, I know it's hard to see, but it says answer key and points. This is how you select the correct answer. So you click on that and then give it a point value. So you can just click that little plus or negative and determine your point value. And then I'm just clicking on the correct answer and it turns green with a check mark.
Perfect, thank you.
If second is the correct answer, then I can change that. So you always want to just click the correct answer and turn it green and then click done.
Perfect. We'll continue with more questions in a minute. Dana, can you go over sharing real quick? I know we're almost at our 45 minutes, but we want to share.
Okay, definitely. So to share, you want to click up here where it says send. And you have a few options. You can share via email, you can get the link, or you can get the embed code. So if you are going to share via email, you would put someone's name in here. So for example, I can add John Shoemaker and so on. I can include the form in an email and I can send it. So that might be something if you have a parent contact list that you would want to do. If you are going to add this to your Google Classroom, then I would suggest clicking this link, and I like to shorten the URL, copy this link, and go into my Google Classroom and paste. And by the way, I know we're out of time, but there is a way to create the form directly within your Google Classroom course as well.
Correct. If you'll go back one step, I think you may have to hit the mail icon. The other thing, oh, maybe not, hit send again. The other thing, just so you know. No, that's okay. No, the other thing, just so you know, if you want to add multiple people to build the form, that's what the collaborators are for. So collaborators are if you want multiple teachers building one form. The link is to share out to answer it. Okay?
Correct. And the collaborators will be able to see the results as well because they are in there and they can edit.
Correct. The only other thing, real quick, can you also show the sections? Because we promised we would get to sections.
Yes. Okay. Let me just close this. So for sections, let me just show everyone what that looks like, and then we'll briefly go over it. Google Forms allows branching. So that means that you can begin with one question, and then depending on how the person answers, it will branch to different parts of the quiz. So in this example, Robert, in our previous webinar, you had asked about something for high school. So I put one together. I hope you're still there. So let's say I was a senior. Now notice there's only one question here on the screen, but when I click senior and I go next, now I have a different section for seniors. Have you met your graduation requirements? Yes. Would you like to speak with your guidance counselor? So if I click no, now it's going to go to the end of the form. However, let me go back for a minute. And if I click yes, I do want to talk to a guidance counselor, and I go to the next one, it's going to prompt me for my contact information. And I can go back and I have the same thing for seniors and juniors and so on. So to do something like that, let me go back into edit mode and show you how this is built. So you begin with a question. And notice how here's different sections. So the way that this works is, let's say I want to, I think I only did seniors and juniors, correct? Oh, I did sophomores. Let me just delete this real quick. All right, hold on. Let me just start a new one. It's easier that way. All right, so we're going to start with a blank. And I'm going to just name this sections. All right. So first thing is you would have whatever your question is, and then you would have whatever your respondents are, or your senior, junior, and whatever else. Okay. Now, the next thing that you would want to do is click down here to add a section. This is really important because you're going to then link each answer to a new section. So I'm going to make a section and I'm going to call this one seniors. And then I'm going to add another section and I'm going to make this one juniors. Then I'm going to come back up here to my first question. And when you click on this first question, we're going to go to the ellipse. When we click on the ellipse, do you see how it says go to section based on answer? This is how we connect that branch. So we're going to click that. And now I have a drop down. So if someone selects this particular answer, I'm going to send them to the section titled seniors. If someone picks this answer, I'm going to send them to the section called juniors. And that's how it will bump them to the appropriate section. I would also recommend making this first one required because this will determine how the form will branch. Once you have that done, then within my seniors section, I would begin adding questions. And you can continue to branch on and on from there. When you're done, you can click the down arrow and submit the form, and that will take the people to the end of the form. I can do more of this. I know our time is up, John.
Yeah.
Should I keep going?
That's okay. No, just I think that was very clear. Just know that you really have to plan out a branched form. It is quite complex, but it is very useful. So you're only sending out one URL to people. Just know that it is available. Google has tons of tutorials as well. We are all about just hop on a Google search and Google, hop on YouTube and Google it. The answers are out there. Teachers are helping one another everywhere. So just don't worry about that kind of stuff. Most of the questions, it looks like it has been answered. We will be doing more of these kind of sessions in the future. I'm just going to add real quick, don't forget, we do have our website. It is there. We are adding new topics for next week already. Due to the demand, we're going to be redoing the remote learning, talking about the hitting the reset button, that Tuesday is the first day of school. What kind of routines and procedures will you have? We're going to be doing another Google Meet and another Getting Started with Classroom. And we also have an additional topic at 2:30 we will be working on as well. Remember, all of our resources are going to be in that top right corner. The pages will go live very soon. Don't forget, all the way down at the bottom is our channel, so please feel free to subscribe. The contact page on our website has all of our training team members. So I've been recommending people to email multiple of us because the first person that gets to the question can answer you. We are getting quite a bit of email, so we are doing the best we can to answer every question as quickly as possible. We want to be here for you to support you in any way we can. So we do appreciate you for being here. Otherwise, thank you so much. Dana, you want to say any last words?
Thank you so much for joining us. We have a page on our website that contains a lot of information for Google Forms. That should be live and ready tomorrow. And I even have the form that you all took in the beginning as an example. I put that in there as if you want to download it and make a copy that maybe you want to use with your own students.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon, everyone. We'll be back on Monday to help you get ready for Tuesday. Bye-bye.